What's up? I've been spending a lot more time in the studio recently making clay, doing some mugs, working on some face jugs, jack-o'-lanterns. I've done over 20 jack-o'-lanterns in the past week or so. Spending a lot of time in the studio. I haven't done a whole lot with my YouTube channel over the last few years though, and I'm hoping to change that. So I thought I would start with something really simple, just do a little tutorial. As far as throwing on the wheel goes, really one of the first things you typically learn is how to center the clay, obviously, but then also how to throw a cylinder. So we'll start there. Who knows what I may post in the next, next weeks, next years, who knows. But just thought I'd start with something simple. So without further ado, let's do it. All right, we are going to do a little tutorial on centering clay on the wheel, and then we're going to throw the body of a mug after we have centered it. So we'll get started here. I have a big, all right, that'll work. Instead of throwing a ball of clay, what I typically do is when I'm doing mugs, I'll roll out, well, first I'll wedge the clay, and then I'll roll out a big log, and then I'll just kind of cut about as much as I want at a time to throw a mug. I'll save that for later. First thing we're gonna do is slap our clay down on the wheel, just as close to the center as we can. So I'm off. I'm gonna real quickly just kind of slide it right in the center, and then I'll give a good smack or two, and then I'm gonna come in at the base with my hands, kind of like an angle. Not like this, not like this, but like an angle and right on the bottom. So keeping the wheel at a low speed, just gonna kind of karate chop in. After I do that a couple times, I am gonna adjust my hands more to the side. Do that a few times. And then I'm gonna adjust them even further, and now I'll kind of come down on top at an angle. So I've got it roughly centered now. Not centered though, just roughly. So next, we're gonna do two things, but we're gonna do them at the same time. So I'm gonna show you one at a time, but you're going to do both of these things simultaneously. So this is where T-Rex arms come into play. I'm gonna lock my elbows in to my hips here. And with my left hand, I'm going to use this part, sort of this L shape of my left hand, to push in towards the center of that clay. So this part of my hand is making contact with the clay, and this part is here too. So I'm gonna get it wet, get my hand wet, and I'm keeping my hand on the bat. I'm pushing in, and while I'm doing that with this hand, I'm pushing down with this one. And I'm only using this part of my right hand to come down on top. And if this makes sense, try to use both of your hands as one tool. So you keep them together and you use them as one tool with the clay. So I'm pushing in and down, in and down, in and down. And by keeping my hands together like this, I'm getting more stability over that clay. I'm getting more sort of purchase power on the clay as it's spinning around. So in and down, in and down. And that's gonna help. And often I'll just kind of start from here, honestly. Once you've thrown clay for a while, there's certain steps you can kind of skip once you get a feel for it. But any beginner's class is gonna show you now is when you bring it up into, it's called coning, but you're gonna cone your clay. So this hand, I'm not doing much different. I'm kind of pushing in, but with this hand, I'm going to sort of hinge around, and I'm gonna pull up. So you see I'm kind of forming this shape on the inside of my hands here. So I'm hinging with my right hand and I'm pulling up. So in with my left hand, hinging with my right, and I'm gonna go up, 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 up. Keep going, and then easy off. I'll do it one more time. Up, 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 up. Easy off. Okay? So now I'm gonna reverse a step, go back to what I was doing a minute ago, but I'm not gonna keep my hand on the bat for this part. I'm gonna start at the top. So I'm gonna push in, while I'm coming down with my right hand. And again, I'm using both of them as one tool. So pushing in and then down, and you can see what's happening to the clay. In and down until I have a little puck, and I'm going to slowly come off of the clay. And there you go. It's got a little tiny bit of wobble, but that is not too shabby. If you're not happy with that, again, just kind of push in and down. Use a lot of force on that clay to get it right where you want it. When you're working with such a small amount of clay, sometimes if you use too much force, it almost like delaminates from the bat. I almost had that happen there where I'm using so much force that it wants to just pull the whole thing up off of the bat. But I lucked out. It didn't happen where I could feel where it wanted to. All right, so at this point we're nice and centered. So I'm going to use this sort of U shape, this curved part of my thumb, to open up the form. So I'm going to use my left thumb as a tool, and I'm going to use my right hand to guide that tool. So it's going to look different on the video, but from my view at the wheel, I'm going to start right there in the center, and I'm going to stay just to the left side of the center of this piece of clay. So I'm going to wet it. Use 2 fingers on my right hand to slowly push down with my thumb. You're going to see I start to open up sort of a bowl shape. And then I'm going to stop right about there when I think that there's about a quarter of an inch is a little thin, half an inch is a little thick. So maybe about 3/8 of an inch thickness on the bottom there. I don't want to go all the way down to the wheel. So let me check it. I got my needle tool here. I'm going to stick it in there. I'm going to put my finger right there at the base of the needle and then pull out in one motion. You can see that the bottom is about that thick. Okay. So next, I'm going to use my left hand here to open up this form. Right now I have sort of a U shape in the bottom, a bowl, but I'm making a mug. I want a nice flat bottom. So I'm going to use 2 or 3 fingers, kind of start right here in the center. And again, here I'm doing 2 motions at once, and I'll show them to you one at a time, but you're going to do them simultaneously. So you're going to use 2 or 3 fingers, start right here in the center. And what you're going to do is sort of crawl back. You're going to pull your hand back, and while you're pulling that hand back, you're going to sort of curl your fingers just slightly. While you're doing that, you're going to come down with your right hand on top. And what you're essentially doing is you're creating a mold here for your clay to conform to. See the little space between my fingers here? That's the wall that you're going to create when you're pulling back. So you are just redistributing this clay into a little wall. So here we go. I'm gonna start crawling back, and my thumb is not really doing anything. It's just kind of hanging out over here, providing just a little tiny bit of pressure on the outside. But it's crawling back with my left hand, and with that right hand, I'm coming down on top. I'm gonna stop right about there because that's about the width I want for the bottom of my mug. Okay? And here's an important step that some people skip and some people run into problems later on. What I'm going to do is compress the clay in the bottom of my mug because clay has sort of a memory when you fire it. What I mean by that is right now I've spent this time pulling the clay out from the center, and in the kiln that clay is going to have a memory for spreading out from that center point. And if I don't compress the clay in the bottom, it's going to lead to an S-crack where that clay just continues to pull out and exert that sort of motion as it fires in the kiln. So what I want to do is give it a new memory. I want to compress the clay inward so that that clay continues to go nice and tight and form a nice bottom without any cracks. So I'm going to start right here on the inside of the bottom that I've created, but sort of like on the exterior of that, or on the outer ring here. So I'm going to start here and just give a gentle pressure with my middle finger, and I'm just going to sort of ride that wave into the center of the clay. So gentle pressure, riding it into the center, And if you get a little peel away, that's okay. Nobody needs that anyway. So I'll do it 1 or 2 times. A little pressure, in. Peel away, that's okay. And another thing that's doing is if there are any sort of humps and bumps in the bottom, this is one opportunity to sort of correct that as you compress inward. So now I have a nice flat bottom, and I'm not going to get that S-crack. That's good. So now we'll actually start throwing the clay. What that really means is, so right now you see we've got this big thick wall here, but we want a nice tall wall for a mug. We don't want all this thick clay down here. So again, throwing the clay is really just a redistribution of this ball of clay. So I've got all this clay, I'm going to redistribute it to form a wall. First I'll just make a cylinder and then I'll show you how to kind of shape it. So I'll get a little water going. On the inside, for the first pull, for the first, redistributing of the clay, I'm not going to do a ton. I'm going to kind of go to a volcano shape. You'll see what I mean. So my inside fingers, I'm using these 2 fingers on my left hand. They're not doing much. They're just kind of giving a guiding pressure, but I'm not pushing out really. And then with my sponge, I'm going to start at the bottom with my right hand. And I'm going to push in and up, in and up, in and up, up, and then easy off. Okay, and it's important to easy off because if I just do it real quick, then I'm going to get something like this, and that's no good for anybody. Okay, so now I've got my volcano, sort of. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start giving more pressure with this left hand inside of the pot. So watch what happens down here when I use these 2 fingers and give some pressure. You're going to see a sort of a spare tire form. See right there? So what I want to do is whenever that forms, I get up underneath it with my sponge here. So I'm going to wait for that fat tire to form, get underneath it, and then go up with it and just sort of ride that wave. And it's just, again, it's redistributing this clay upward, building some height for us. So I'll get it nice and wet. Got my fat tire here, go up, 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 and then easy off when I get to the top. At this point, that's really what you're doing until you're happy with the height or until the clay gets too thin. If it starts getting too thin, then you really don't have more clay to redistribute. And at that point, you'd need to use more clay if you want to make a larger piece, or you just got to kind of be content with the size of the piece that you've made. So again, fat tire, wait for it, ride it up, up, up. Okay. Every now and then, something I like to do is compress the clay at the top of the piece, and 2 reasons. You see right now I'm getting a little wobble, it's a little uneven on top. It's going to help fix that, but in addition it's going to make sure that I have a nice thick lip on the piece for later on. So when I'm drinking my coffee, it won't be too thin and too, it'll be a good experience. I've got a place for my lips to sort of land whenever I'm drinking that coffee. So I'm going to just kind of gently pinch with my left fingers here, not too much, but just kind of holding the wall of the clay in place, and then I'm going to come down with this finger on top just to kind of fatten that lip up a little bit. Okay. So one more pull. I think that's about all I'm going to get. Okay. There's my cylinder. So from here, I could really do anything I want. I could make a tiny little vase. I could turn it into a mug, which is what I'm planning to do with it. I could make a bowl shape. I would have done things a little differently if I were making a bowl versus a mug. Most bowls, you want a nice U shape on the bottom, but we have a flat bottom. So anyway, long story short, whatever you're imagining, you could go from here, or you may want to sort of start your whole piece a little differently depending on what you're making. I got a little extra clay down here at the bottom that I could throw, but I'm pretty happy with this height, so I'm just going to cut that off using my wooden knife here. That squeaky noise you hear is my wheel pedal. Need to grease it up. All right, so from here I'm going to just shape it. Got my metal rib, and let's see, how do I want to do this one? I'll try and do one more little pull. There we go. I'll keep this one kind of simple. I'm going to push in at the bottom with my metal rib. And what I'm doing, again, I'm just making shapes for the clay to conform to. So I'm gonna use this rib to sort of give it a curved shape, and I'm just going to push out from the inside so that the clay conforms to this shape. Okay. I'll clean up my lip just a little bit. So it's a nice experience when you're drinking from it. This is called a chamois. It's just a piece of car detailing cloth. I tied it to a little bobber here so that when I put it in my slip bucket, I can easily find it. But a chamois is, it sort of simulates human skin, which sounds gross. But basically, if you use it on the lips of your pieces, it's going to make them nice and smooth. Again, just a better drinking experience when you're drinking from a mug. And that's about it. This guy is honestly not my favorite shape. Typically, I don't start with a cylinder. I just kind of go right for the shape that I want to make. But I wanted this to be a demo not only of making a mug, but of also kind of, or not only a cylinder, but also trying to shape it and make some kind of mug. So anyway, that is pretty much that. What I'm gonna do now is cut this guy off the wheel, let it sit for a while, dry out. Then I will flip it on the wheel, trim up the bottom so it has a nice finished appearance later on, add a handle, and then drink some coffee. So that is pretty much it for the first tutorial video here. Thought we'd start with something simple. Maybe someday we'll get to making section pots and all kinds of other things. I'm by no means a master at this kind of thing, but I picked up a couple little tricks over the years that are pretty fun. So anyway, if this was helpful or you think interesting or whatever, be sure to smash that like button. Be sure to hit that bell. No, just kidding. I hope it was entertaining, or at the very least worth posting. So we'll see you on the next one.